Hello, and welcome to Lampkin and Elm, a classic horror podcast where we talk anything horror, usually 90s and back, now that that's 30 years on for the most part. We'll talk a little gaming, horror game mostly because it fits in. And we'll talk some physical media, and on tonight's special Christmas episode, we have to talk about Nosferatu, the movie that just premiered and one which I just got back from seeing, and it is amazing. So, we're going to be talking Nosferatu, Dracula, what it's all about, what each one's about, and we'll compare and contrast the three Nosferatu movies, and we'll probably talk a little bit about I'm going to say it's a spiritual Nosferatu, Shadow of the Vampire. Amazing. William Dafoe's in two of these movies, so how bad could they be is the expression, but my goodness, all of them are amazing. That is the good about them all. To start, I want to apologize for not putting any new episodes up. It was kind of a bear of a fall, and sometimes you go through writer's block or a dip in creative thought, and I would rather give the best possible than try and just waste everybody's time. So I very much appreciate if you're hanging on with me and listening to this. It's amazing, and thank you so much. Not much in new releases this fall. I didn't really pick up anything aside from The Seven Samurai that came out on 4K by Criterion, but that's not really a horror movie. It's one of the best movies ever, but I recommend go buying it right now. But can't think of anything big horror I got this fall. So it's been a pretty light horror movie time for me. About the only new thing I saw was Barbarian, that movie about the stuff in the basement. Very awesome. Go check it out. New horror again. As far as anything classic and new, I haven't discovered anything. I need to get back into that because there's always a good classic horror movie to find out there. Give me some recommendations. Throw something out there. But I digress. Nosferatu. I guess we should start with Dracula, and I guess we should start with the idea of Dracula. Most people know this nowadays, but I know this a little bit extra and read a couple of books on it because my family, my great-grandmother was from Transylvania area, and my genetic test shows it too. It's really fun when people say, yeah, you're so-and-so's from so-and-so, but when the proof is in the DNA, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, she was a Transylvanian, and Western Romania is what it's called now, but it's still in the Carpathians, and it's still spooky, and there are still some practices that have stayed there, and we would call protection from vampirism or people coming back from the dead. I think National Geographic about 10 years ago had an article about the Eastern Europe, Georgia. There are still things people do to ensure that their luck stays up, we shall say, without getting too into the weeds on that fun stuff. But yeah, it's real fun knowing that I'm from there. So in my interest in Dracula and vampirisms and all these movies and books is just a little higher. The big man himself, Vlad Dracula, was a 1400s despot prince. He was not a very nice fellow, but not a lot of people were very nice at that time. And in that time, the area of Transylvania was kind of like the last sliver of defense before the Ottomans took over. So the Transylvanians are constantly fighting the Ottomans and constantly getting bullied by the Austro-Hungarians and the powers of the West, and they're kind of just stuck in the middle. And Dracula is the son of Dracul. He is a son of somebody that was in the Order of the Dragon, a Christian organization designed to keep out the Ottomans, the Ottoman Turks, who were Muslim. And so that stuff didn't stop once the Crusades ended. There was still tension between both imperial powers and religious powers. So, and little old Transylvania was in the middle of it, and Vlad was a prince. He became a prince of a area, Wallachia, in southwest to south Romania nowadays. And he took civil defense very seriously. He was a take no prisoners, no quarter type of guy. He impaled, hence his nickname Vlad the Impaler, couple 10,000 enemies. And it was one of those despotisms where you could be a friend one day, an enemy the next, and yikes. Martial law was in effect in the pure terrorism aspect. There's a story that Vlad kept a gold cup at the well at Târgoviște, and no one dare took it because they knew that if they were to be caught with a stolen item of Vlad Tepes Dracula, it wouldn't end for them. But he was deposed, and then he got power again, then he was deposed, and then he was shot with a bunch of arrows and beheaded. But you got to understand, there's still a large German population in that area, Saxon population, and there were a lot of Germans in the area back then, and it was a melting pot. There were Romanians, Hungarians, Transylvanians, Zeklers, which are like the indigenous people of that area, all sorts, Turks. So there was tension everywhere, and the industrious German, we would call now middle class, the burghers, the artisans, all that fun stuff. They all owned printing presses and were artisans and stuff like that. So they made some good old-fashioned propaganda, which isn't too hard because he did butcher a lot of people. It's not too hard to make him out to be a bloodthirsty monster. So, and that's what they did. You can see those woodblock newspapers basically still showing him dining out in the field, looking at the 10,000 people he impaled and all that fun stuff, drinking blood, all that. That sounds an awful lot like a guy named Dracula in Bram Stoker's book. He definitely took a lot of the story of Dracula, the Dracula with a historical Dracula, and wove it into his tale of a count trying to get to London to find new, when you're out in the middle of the country, no good restaurants. He needed a good restaurant too. He needed to, dine on fresh victuals. And he happens to fall in love. Standard stuff. We all know the story of Dracula. Harker in Nosferatu, Hütte goes out. He is somehow Dracula, Orlok, is enchanted by Mina Harker or Hoot or whatever you want to call them, where this is going to be fluid, and gets to London, wroughts havoc, is destroyed. Basic idea of Dracula. So from the very onset of cinema, film, motion pictures, the classic Gothic horrors such as Frankenstein and stuff like that were made, and we have to go back to the 1890s when Dracula came out, the late 1890s, almost the 1900s. I think it was 1897 or 98 that it was published. That book's published, and motion pictures are already in existence. So just like any popular book of the time, especially horror, it gets made into a movie. And it's one of those first ones, just like Frankenstein and Hunchback of Notre Dame and all that stuff. Those are all early on silent films, silent shorts, then larger movies. They made them, and sure enough, in the early 1920s, I should say, because we're now in the 2020s, the early 1900s, the Germans come along. Murnau, a expressionist artist, director, one of those guys that's just talented at everything, but wants to make a movie about Dracula. He wants to make Dracula, but as is now, the estate of Bram Stoker was not down for that. So they did it anyway, and they changed characters. Dracula becomes Orlok. Harker becomes Huta, type of thing, and it's very loosely based on Dracula, but not loose enough not to get sued for copyright. And the movie is actually ordered to be destroyed because if you've watched Murnau's Dracula movie, Nosferatu, it is very close to the source material. It is not a coincidence. It is not just taking the historical guy and doing that. But it was ordered destroyed, and we almost lost it. And it's such a beautiful movie too. German Expressionism is one of those things that was it was a victim of Nazi Germany. The Nazis loved German stuff. They liked Wagner. They liked classical music. They liked art that is from the 1800s and 1700s. So this weird, we would call it definitely leftist in the way of liberal arts, very creative, very out there, very modern. German Expressionism comes along, and Murnau is one of them, and all the people that worked on his movie are expressionist, and it becomes this beautiful piece of moving art. It is truly a work of art, and not many silent films hold up to just being able to turn on and watch and enjoy, and it being a critical piece of work, and being really one of the humanity's best efforts in film, regardless of it being a horror. Go watch it. Put on the music that you want to it. And you don't, because it's a silent film. You could put an orchestration. You could put it up. I've watched it with 80s chiptune or wave type music to it, and it's awesome. So give it a watch. Shadow of the Vampire is a early 2000s movie where William Dafoe plays Max Schreck, the actor from Murnau's Nosferatu, and he turns out to actually be a vampire, and things go awry behind the scenes, and awesomeness ensues. William Dafoe is killer in it, as he is in the new Nosferatu. And man, it just makes the original Nosferatu that much better. And since I mentioned Max Schreck, think about how iconic Orlok's look is, and his mannerisms, and his unearthliness, and just generally the creepiness is still there 102 years on. It is frightening and haunting in the best ways possible. So it was supposed to be destroyed, like I was saying. The courts ordered it to be destroyed, but somehow some copies, I think they were in America actually, in the United States of America, were saved, and we now have the ability to watch it all these years on. And of course, the copyright of Dracula is now in the public domain, much like Murnau's movie is in the public domain, and you can just go and, heck, you could print your own copy of Dracula if you wanted, or burn your own copy of Nosferatu. It's free if you do a little work. But by the 70s, there had been all sorts of Draculas. The Universal Draculas, the Hammer Draculas, the everything in between Draculas, the Blackulas, the everything. Dracula is the most famous monster ever, right up there with Sherlock Holmes. We all know them. They're archetype literary works and pieces for our modern times. But by that time, this very unique director named Werner Herzog decides to get his buddy Klaus Kinski to play Orlok Dracula again, and they make a 70s surreal, ghosty, pastoral is what I would describe it as, update to Nosferatu. And in 1979's Nosferatu, the cool thing is it's a talkie now, because it's 1979, and they make it in both German and English, much like a spaghetti western. The German people would speak German, the French people would speak French, and they would just, make the movie and dub over everybody else. But all the main actors spoke German and English, so they made two copies. You'll have to forgive my boy Chip. He is a barky boy, this little stinker. But anyway, they make this amazing thing. And I have to say, the soundtrack, the Popavool soundtrack, it's probably the best part of that movie. And that's saying something, because Werner Herzog is one hell of a director. Klaus Kinski is one heck of an actor, and he probably would have been more successful if he wasn't such a crazy person on set. And Bruno Ganz is one hell of a lead actor for that movie. He is most famous for, definitely in the United States, he plays Hitler in the movie Downfall that the meme has been made of constantly. Heck of an actor. Just recently passed away, sad. But Klaus Kinski is a nut, and he was Werner Herzog's frenemy, muse, whatever you want to call him, best friend that you can't stand. I don't know what you call Klaus Kinski and Herzog's relationship, but Herzog got the best out of him, and he knew Kinski was a very erratic, frenetic guy, and Orlok Dracula had to be this, not dour, but reserved, tired, old, decrepit character. And Herzog had to make sure to make him do a lot of takes or get him all riled up. So just like, when your kid throws a temper tantrum, they get tired afterwards. Same thing. So he'd have to run him ragged to get the performance he wanted out of him. And it is one heck of a Dracula movie. It's one heck of a Nosferatu. And if Nosferatu's best attributes are being the first of its kind, art, horror that is legitimately not exploitive but beautiful and scary and purposeful, same thing with Werner Herzog's version. And their leading vampires are amazing, and their casts are amazing, and the scenery is amazing. All of these movies are beautiful in their own way. I just think my favorite part is that Popavool soundtrack. So many things are influenced by Nosferatu. Since before we get to 2024, I'm a gaming nerd, and there's a series of video games called Castlevania. In Japan, Akumaji no Dracula, I think is what it is. And it is about a guy with a whip. It was the 80s after all. What heroes didn't have a whip? Going and killing Dracula. And it was very influenced by the 1930s horror movies. There's Frankenstein in it. Originally, these games were side-scrolling. You know, you get to the end of the level, you fight a monster. And in between, there's ghosts, goblins, and everything else. It's known for its being incredibly difficult. Amazing soundtracks, and regardless of what console, awesome graphics. But the one in particular that is easily influenced by Nosferatu is probably top 3 game for me, and probably a top 20 game ever. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, 1997, on PlayStation and Saturn. Play that Saturn version. It is rough, but it is amazing. Anyway, Castlevania Symphony of the Night has at the center of the castle that you go and explore, and you can go back and forth. It's called a Metroidvania. It's an exploratory side-scroller. Very cool. Give Metroid or Symphony of the Night a try. But I digress. In the middle part of this castle is the Orlok's lair, and you fight Orlok, and easily he is Count Orlok, you know, bald, creepy, yada yada yada. Anyway, I had to digress. Go play that game right now. Best music ever in a video game, I imagine, and it's one hell of a game. It's a perfect 2D game at a time when 3D was taking over, and it was written off for a time as being antiquated, but is now, you know, considered one of the greatest video games ever. One of the greatest soundtracks ever. It's perfect. It is a perfect video game, and go play it right now. It's on every major console, except Nintendo Switch. For some weird reason, Nintendo and Konami make money, print money. I would buy it right now. I digress. So 2001 comes around, and Shadow of the Vampire comes out. It rekindles some of that. You know, there's generations. The farther you get from something, the more detached it is from the cultural zeitgeist. And you know, a lot of kiddos my age, if I told them I watched Nosferatu, a silent film, they'd be like, "Why the hell did you do that?" Now imagine this generation, where their tastes are far different, and Robert Eggers, who is making art house horror, and I haven't seen Northman yet, but it looks to be a spooky action movie, and I'm down for that. Vikings, awesome. I need to watch it. I'll probably watch it this week now because I'm off, now that my interest is piqued in Egger movies. But we all know him. We all love him. Every movie he's made has been very beautiful and interesting, and but Nosferatu 2024, I promise I'm not going to do anything spoilerish, because this is literally, if my watch had a date on it, this is an old Armatron Griffey 70s looking watch. If it had a date on it, I would tell you that it's December 25th, and I just got home from seeing the movie. It is probably, I know, not hyperbole, not hyperbolic, it may be the best horror movie I've ever seen. And I don't say it lightly, but from start to finish, it encapsulates you in the world, in the realness, in the grittiness, in the griminess of the period. Is set in like 1838, I think, so mid 1800s in Germany, not in England, just like the other, the Nosferatus are never set in England like Dracula, but it's so perfectly detailed. Like, it's that the level of detail in the establishing shots of like the city, Like, the butcher is out butchering out in the middle of the street, and the blood is running down the street, just like it would have been. Smithfield in London was a open-air butchery in the Middle Ages, and ironically, I think there is a brand of bacon called Smithfield. Some things never change, I guess. But it just sets up this movie. It is... You can tell his influences in this movie, but he makes them... He makes it all original. It's not an homage. It's not a copy. It is taking a lot of works and making it his own in a way that only Eggers could do. And from start to finish, the color tone of the movie, oh my goodness, this movie better win some Oscars, and it needs to win for costume design and set direction and stuff like that, because it is, man, the stuff they built and the place and the stuff they shot on location is perfect. Everything is detailed. We're kind of used to period pieces, everybody being clean and perfect, and you know what I mean? Like all those Emmas and stuff like that. They don't show that the practical nature of living in an era where you didn't shower every day and you weren't perfectly make-upped and suited and shaven clean and all that fun stuff. It's very I would imagine it's as close as you can get to kind of being period specific and period correct without really, you can't go tell your actors and actresses, hey, don't shower for a week while you're on set while we're shooting, you know what I mean? So, but it's absolutely gorgeous. The characters are all, that where they're coming from. They're all, the main characters are all not just stereotypical. They all have, you can tell there was thought to what they were to say in each scene. I think Eggers writes his own material, and he got into those characters' psyches and put it to page, and it's awesome. The leads are amazing. I think that's Johnny Depp's daughter, and she deserves an Oscar the way Linda Blair deserved an Oscar for The Exorcist. The stuff she was no doubt put through to get that performance, I couldn't imagine having to be that character for that much filming all the time. Like, she deserves whatever accolades she gets. She carries the movie. The movie is not the damsel in distressiness of it. I'm not going to give it away, but it's funny. We're living in modern times, and movies can say things about society and history, and it's very easy to be heavy-handed and sanctimonious. But I think he definitely weaves some women's issues and modern for the time 1830s medicine into what people would do, thinking they were trying to help people heal, and to be a woman in Victoria times was probably a rough go, and they were very correct on some things with that in the movie. Again, don't want to give it away. Don't want to say this is some woke movie. It's just, it addresses the times through a lens of a bit of modernity, and we do silly things. I was a kid of the 80s. I remember not being in a car seat or a seat belt, even sometimes, sitting in the back of a pickup truck going down the street. We get better. Hopefully we get better as humanity goes at thinking about health and safety and all that fun stuff. And I do like how it shows that at the end of the day, a lot of the movie is about respecting the beliefs of people you wouldn't normal believe, and that science can't always help you type of message. There's a bit of that. So, and it is not heavy-handed, it is not sanctimonious. It's just, he builds the world so well that you're invested and you believe. It's like, okay, I am escaping reality. I am in 1830s Germany, even though there was no Germany in the 1830s. We'll get Holy Roman Empire. So tons of talk about on that one that we can't get into. But an area that we call Germany. You're sucked in, and I think that is a true testament to a good movie, is that your brain drops and you're absorbed. Star Wars did it. It took you to that place. I mentioned The Seven Samurai. You're in medieval Japan. It puts you in the middle of it. And this does that. It is, story-wise, the story is perfectly awesome. Creature-wise, Orlok is amazing, and the way they went with it just works and is perfect and it is beautiful, and Skarsgård's performance is amazing, as is William Dafoe's as the Van Helsing type of character. And just stop listening to this and go watch it and come back and tell me your thoughts. It's like, shut up, put everything down, turn your phone off, go watch this movie. It is a hard R. I was sitting in front of, because it's Christmas and people get out of the house because they're bored and they're sick of family, talking all the time and all that fun stuff. And, the craziness of the holidays, a lot of people go to the movies, and bang, right in front of me was a family with high school kids and mom and dad. And this movie, I would not want to sit with my family and watch. I went alone, and I'm glad I did, because it is a very hard R in many ways, and I will not get into it. It's not a faint of heart type of movie. If you're squeamish about lots of things, maybe wait for it to come out in the comfort of your own home. But it's worth it, because it is, like I said, it sucks you into a world. He crafted a world that is absolutely perfect. I like how it, eschews gender roles, where no damsel in distressy type of situation. It's absolutely beautiful. It builds this sense of dread that the original Nosferatu had, that, like, the plague is coming. Everybody on the boat dies. Then the rats break out and are all over the place. Then death comes. And if you've never read up on the bubonic plague, the original Black Death of 1347, or at least the one that we attribute to being the first one, even though it's happened plenty of times before, there was just this sense of, like, people didn't understand what was going on. The town, and you'd get news that Messina is stricken, then it goes up the coast, and Rome is stricken, then Marseille, then Paris, then England, and, like, there was that sense of dread that's captured in that. It's not that it's coming and you can't do anything about it and you're powerless. That's what, a lot of why a horror movie works, is that you're powerless. The monster's too powerful. It's got you. It's deceiving you. It's haunting you. It's possessing you. And it just captures that. I want to pause real quick and say, this movie deals with plague, just like Nosferatu did. Plague is a big part of Nosferatu, because it's that sense of he is a plague. He's a plague on humanity, and there's also plague. He brings rats to. I always think it's like it's convenient to be a vampire when there's plague because you can get away with a lot more. So I'm sure plagues and vampires go hand in hand, but he's gross and he's decrepit and he is not in any way a sexy Eastern European guy in a tuxedo, and it's absolutely perfect. So stop what you're doing, go watch this movie. I can't stress it enough. Go watch this movie. A lot of art house horror can be pretentious and all that, but man, he's respectful to the customs. You have to be a little thematic and a little grand on all these old things peasants believe in the hills type of thing. But I think one of the messages is that science science can get you far, but you also have to think outside the box. And I think the movie encapsulates it very well. The scenes out in the country and out in Transylvania, the gypsies are amazing, immaculately costumed, and I want to research this movie from a linguistic standpoint because there's a lot of subtitles, because there's a lot of speaking roles that the character is not meant to know what they're saying. They're speaking another language. So there's a lot of, I guarantee you, they, just like The Witch, where the way those actors were meant to speak and pronounce English, and the word, the lexicons and grammar and word use at the time, I'm willing to bet that Dracula either speaks a very old version of Latin or a very old version of Romani or Transylvanian or Wallachian or something, because I really want to. This is a movie that I'm going to instantly buy on 4K, and I'm going to watch all the behind the scenes because I want to know what they did. This is like one of those movies that I'll watch constantly again, because it's going to be one of those movies like Blade Runner where you just pause it and you look at what is in the scene and why is it set up like that. So it's the perfect art house horror movie. And it's a horror movie, and it's probably it might be the best horror movie I've ever seen. I'm not going to lie. That's saying something. I would love to hear everyone's thoughts on it. This is a very reactionary video, and I probably, if I could go see it in IMAX, I would drive there right now to a real IMAX. But, oh man, it's beautiful. It's perfect. Go watch it. Tell me what you think about it, and I look forward to it. And you all, thank you for listening to this ramble. I promise there's going to be more episodes soon. This movie did an amazing thing. It gave me the drive to sit in front of this camera and talk shop and talk horror, and it's rejuvenated me a little bit, and I'm excited because there's still good movies being made in the world, and it's not all TikTok clips and Snapchats and shorts and memes and stuff like that. There's still people are using cameras to make amazing things, and this movie is one of those amazing things. So go see it. As always, I want to thank the Noble House, Taipan, Jared Van Natta for helping put this thing together, producing it essentially, because it would not happen without him. And go watch it's awesome. And I haven't been paying attention. I'm gonna have to edit this. There's something on in the background because I guess Nosferatu ended. Okay, there might be a pill in front of this at the end. And on that note, we'll leave it, and thank you all. You all have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, first night of Hanukkah, Yule, whatever you Kwanzaa, all of it. Whatever you do, and if you don't do anything, that's awesome too. Have a wonderful rest of the year, and let's hope 2025 is kind to us. And I'll be back soon. Thank you, and have a good night.